Today I'm going to tell you a little bit about a horn that's called the 1910 Conn Perfected Wonder. Don't you love those names? I'm sure there's some people out there, especially trumpet or cornet players, that probably like to know a little bit about older horns. So again, this one was made in 1910. Conn started making horns, mainly cornets, and then other instruments about 1885, and they were finally bought out, I believe, in 1915, but the name continued. For the most part, during that times, their horns were top shelf. They kind of dominated the market, and rightfully so. They sound great. They're made really well, and there's kind of nothing like them. I personally really like cornets because they're a darker tone, they're sweeter, they're more mellow. Trumpets are a little bit brighter. That's what's desired in bands these days, and it's just the way it is. Back in the day, in the 50s, when I started playing, most the brass trumpet / cornet section was all cornets, very few trumpets, but that started to change in the late 60s, and now what I do is I buy a bunch of old horns, I fix them up, I give them away, but it's getting harder and harder to give cornets away because, again, they're just not used. They're great though for younger kids that start. They're smaller, they're a little bit easier to play, and so it's understandable. This one's very unique because it has a mechanism on whereby, now cornets and trumpets for the most part are keyed in the key of B flat, but back in the day a lot of cornets also needed to play in the key of the key of A, and as a result they had mechanism. Well, usually most of them didn't have mechanisms. What you did is you exchanged slides, you pulled them out, you had to manipulate them to get into different keys. But this one is kind of neat because what it does, it has a little lever that gets pushed, and what it does, it moves the main tuning slide out. It actually moves the first valve slide. It even has a little bit of a ramp here that moves out the second valve slide, and it also manipulates the third valve slide. So it's kind of unique. Actually, I saw a YouTube that had this done in slow motion, so I won't be able to show you quite as well as they did, but that's the tuning slide going out, the main tuning slide, and pulling it back. See if I can focus a little bit where you'll be able to see the third valve slide go out. Probably a little difficult to see, but hopefully you'll see it. Oh, there you go. And it's kind of really hard to see the middle one because it just moves a very tiny bit. You can probably see that it's out just a bit, and you can kind of see there's a ramp up there that moves it out and in. Is it used? Well, I don't use it. Probably nobody would anymore because, again, the need is not there to play in the key of A. The thing plays really nice. I also have a 1910 Perfected Wonder. It doesn't play, this is a 1910. My 1912 plays a little bit better. What happened is the main factory burnt down in 1911. So it looks like when the factory burnt down, they built it up again, but they didn't continue this mechanism. So my 1912 Perfected Wonder is almost identical to this, but it doesn't have the mechanism. Good, bad, or indifferent, that's just the way it is. You can still adjust the slides a little bit manually if you need to, and most horns do need to have a slight adjustment so they play correctly. So I'll give you a little bit of demonstration. I should have warmed up a little bit more, but I didn't. So, but anyway, you'll get the gist on how it plays. It really hits high notes nice. It's a really clean sound. No, I just love it. There's nothing really like an old horn. And some say that the reason they play so sweetly and nice is because the brass, in this particular case, has had 110 years to the molecules to adjust themselves. What happens when the horn is initially built, the brass takes on a set where it's a little bit harder, and as time moves along, the molecules move a little bit, and it changes the brass slightly. And it, according to some, it does make the tone a little bit milder, a little bit darker. And although a cornet is inherently darker than a trumpet, basically though, the cornet is still, the whole tubing length is about 4.5 feet from mouthpiece to bell. This part's called the lead pipe here. But what happens is the tubing goes around, and ultimately when it comes out the bell, it gets slightly bigger as it goes. It's conical, and that's what gives it its dark, sweet, mellow sound. The trumpet, on the other hand, the tubing after it leaves the lead pipe is constant throughout. It only starts getting larger when it comes out the first valve, or in some cases they actually come out the third valve. So that's what gives a cornet its unique sound. Again, just a few more tones. Well, that's about it. Hope you learned something, and if not, thanks for listening. I have a couple more videos I'll make. One is a 1914 York, laying here actually. This is it right here. This is a beautiful horn too. It's again 1914. It's made by York and Sons. It's a little bit shorter. Conn started the trend of making the horns a little bit larger as it went on. They wanted it to sound a little bit more like a trumpet. And this one's even a little bit more sweeter, more sweet, however. But this is probably my favorite horn. It's great. So I'll make a video of this someday. Again, thanks for listening. Sure I bored you, but if I didn't, you can listen to some more. Take care. Bye.